time to cool off. We're always hearing about what we should do to get the best value from our health service. Well, now, this is a story of one man who definitely did get his money's worth out of the NHS and splashed out with cash that should have been going into patient care.
Greek-born Dimitri Padelis looked every inch the successful businessman, the boss of a top company and someone, it seemed, with money to burn. Not bad for a man who'd started his own company just a few years earlier.
Oh, no, keep the change.
And this is how he made his money. Dimitri Padelis was a doctor, but a doctor with a head for business. After working for a while in different hospitals, he set up his own medical agency. It quickly grew into a company supplying staff to hospitals all over the country.
The agency provided doctors to hospitals when their member of staff or doctor was on holiday, possibly sick. And we would cover vacancies from hospitals in Scotland right down to Cornwall, London, and basically all over the UK.
Calls for Dr. Padelis' services poured into his headquarters here in Crystal Palace in London. As a former locum doctor himself, he knew how the NHS worked inside out. The overstretched and understaffed health service leaned heavily on agencies like his to provide qualified staff, and he was only too happy to help.
Business was so good, he even started learning French to help him take his company's business into Europe.
Well done. You've just said your first 78 French words.
Then his extravagant plans hit a small hitch. The storm clouds began brewing 300 miles away in North Wales, where hospital auditor Ian Hughes spotted something rather peculiar about some of Dr. Padelis' invoices.
We were doing our annual audit of a trust in North Wales, and we were looking at the payment system of that trust. And what we actually found was that trust had been double billed, charged twice for exactly the same service by a locum agency based in London.
Ian asked a number of other hospitals in Wales to look at their accounts.
Oh, hi, this is Ian Hughes here from District Audit. Could you check your payment records to Allcare Limited, please?
They checked and discovered they too had been double billed.
That's right.
Ian Hughes is becoming more and more suspicious about the errors. Small increases in invoices, double billing, all very easily missed. Back at Dr. Padelis' office, the suspicions of staff were also being aroused.
We were quite suspicious that Dr. Padelis used to keep all the financial accounts to himself. He wouldn't allow us to take a hand in or help assist doing the invoicing, and we thought that was quite strange.
The staff had another good reason to distrust him.
When we tallied up the hours that the doctors had worked and the commission that we would have been paid, it didn't work out quite rightly. My colleague and myself did keep a record of the commission that we were due to us, and then we would actually provide him with the figures because we didn't quite trust his calculations.
But soon it became clear that Dimitri Padelis wasn't just conning his staff. Checks at hospitals in Wales soon led to checks at all 458 hospital trusts in the UK. In more and more of them, they found similar errors in the bills from Dr. Padelis' company. The police decided it was time to raid his house. There they found hundreds of documents. Ian Hughes was drafted in by Scotland Yard and spent the next 3 months examining them all.
I spent a number of weeks sifting through the mountain of paperwork, the invoices, the timesheets, and matching them all together just to see exactly what we were dealing with. That work revealed that some 90% of the invoices sent out by that locum agency had been inflated. We were dealing with a fraud on a massive scale.
Ian discovered that Padelis' fraud had infected one hospital after another. He was not only double billing for his agency's staff, but also increasing their working hours and their expenses. Padelis even sent in a bill for the mileage of a locum who cycled to work. Frauds that relied on accounts departments being understaffed, overworked, or sometimes just plain inefficient.
We were absolutely amazed to see what the extent of this fraud was. It was on a nationwide basis, hundreds of hospitals, thousands of invoices over a 4-year period.
The operation was codenamed Ulcer, and rightly so as it turned out, because it was a real pain to unravel. But all that hard work was worth it in the end. because they discovered that what started out looking like a small-time con was in fact a huge criminal exercise. In fact, it was the biggest one-man fraud in the history of the NHS.
The police discovered that Pedellus' so-called business empire was also a fraud. He didn't have offices around the country at all, just the one in Crystal Palace. Calls from clients were all diverted to his office, where he quietly and systematically carried out the fraud.
He would actually do the invoicing himself at the weekends when no one else was about in the office. He picked initially on one hospital, 1 or 2 invoices, very small overcharges, got away with it. Then he tried another couple of hospitals, got away with it. And it just grew and grew over the years. Little and often soon adds up to an awful lot of money.
And this is Dimitri Pedellus. He paid off some of the hospitals he had defrauded in an attempt to stave off prosecution. But eventually, 5 long years after the investigation had begun, he was finally brought to court. During the 2-month trial, video links were used to speak to doctors now working in different parts of the world. With their evidence, he was found guilty of fraudulent trading and false accounting and sentenced to 4 years in jail. Hospital accounting systems have now been changed to try and make sure that frauds like this never happen again. But his gigantic fraud certainly won't be forgotten.
This is a story about a doctor who became known as Dr. Fraud.
The infamous story of Dr. Pedellus is now told regularly by Ian Hughes in lectures to NHS staff all over the country. The doctor always said he wanted to make his name with his medical business, but probably not quite in this way.
Au revoir.